In order to start using React testing library properly, we first need to understand one of the main React testing library philosophies. And to do this, let's take a quick look at what we're trying to build and test. So over here, we're trying to build a form, and obviously this form has quite a bit of functionality to it. Now, of course, when we want to build this form, we have to go ahead and code it out. So let's say that over here we have this person and he went ahead and coded out some logic and it ended up in this form. It ended up resulting in this form with its functionality, its error handling functionality. Now this is awesome and it's behaving exactly the way that we want. However, one thing that I want to note is that we can also have multiple people code out the exact same thing but with different logic. So you can see here that it's different color representing different logic. For example, this person over here, they could have used use state to handle all of the inputs, whereas this person, maybe they just got the e.target.value and directly utilized that to handle the inputs as well as the error handling. So the implementation might be different. However, across all of these people and across all of these code bases, the ultimate outcome and the ultimate design is exactly the same. The software app behaves the exact same way that we intended, regardless of the different implementation details. And React Testing Library says that regardless of how these things have been implemented, the test should always pass. And the reason for this is we will never focus on the implementation details when testing our React application, but rather we're going to test how the software should actually work. So for example, we're going to test that we should type into this. We should be able to type into this input. We should be able, if we input something incorrectly and hit submit, we should see this error. How we get there, React Testing Library doesn't care. It just tests the outcome of the software product. So that is a rule that we are going to follow. We're always going to test how the software is meant to be used, not how it's implemented. And that is a very, very important philosophy that you need to understand when utilizing React Testing Library, and you know what? Any testing framework for that matter. Let's go ahead and write our very first test. Now remember what we want to do. We want to test the behavior of the app that we built, not the implementation details. Now, if I get this form as a user, what do I expect to happen? Well, for one, let's start with the very simplest thing. I expect a user to be able to type into these inputs. And once they type into the inputs, the value is present in that input. So let's actually write a test that tests whether a user can actually type into the email, password, and confirm password inputs. So let's go ahead and do that. And of course, we're going to take a test-driven development approach to do this. So the first thing that we're going to do is write a test that tests that we can type into the input, and then we are going to code out that feature until the test passes. So let's go ahead and do it right now. Now, in order to do this, let's actually go into our app.test.js file and let's actually inspect this test over here. We're going to look at the structure of this test. So a test is written by using the test keyword. And this is something that we go ahead and invoke. So we have test and we go ahead and we invoke it. And what this takes in is two parameters. The first parameter is going to be a string, and this is going to describe what this test is testing. For example, over here, this string says, hey, this is going to render a React link. This is testing that this component, the app component, renders a React link. So over here, we can write anything that we want to describe our test. So I'm just going to say description over here for now. And then as the second parameter, we're going to have a callback function. So a callback function, and inside of this callback function, we're going to have all of our test logic. Now, what is going to go inside of this callback function? Well, typically, these three steps will always occur in any callback function that we have. So the first step, as you can see here, is we're calling a function called render, and we are passing in the app component. So this render thing is, we're getting that from right over here, from the @testing library / React library. So we're getting it auto imported from here. And then what we're doing is, again, we're passing the app component, which we're getting from the app.js file. So the app.js file is over here, which is our app component. All right, so what is this doing? Well, this is going to render that component into the virtual DOM. And it's only going to render that component and any children that it has. Anything else, any parents, are not going to be rendered. So it's going to render that component in the virtual DOM, and once it's in the virtual DOM, we can start testing it. So this is going to be basically rendering the component that we want to test. So rendering the component we want to test. We want to test. Awesome. So that's the very first step. And then the second step over here, you can see what we're doing is we're finding a specific element inside of this component. So right here, we're doing screen, which we're getting from @testing library, and we're saying .getByText. So screen has a bunch of methods that we can utilize to find elements, and we'll talk about all of them in great detail a little bit later. But over here, we have screen.getByText, and then we have a regular expression. So right here, this is a regular expression, and so it's going to find the element that has the text that matches this regular expression. So if we were to go to the app.js file and we want to find the element that has the text learn React, well, over here, it's right over here. So we have this anchor tag right over here that has learn React. So what this is going to do is get us that anchor tag. So it's going to get us that anchor tag. So over here, step 2 is finding the elements. Finding the elements that we want to find. So finding the elements. And then the last step in this case is an assertion. So this right here is the final thing that is going to assert what we want in our test. So here what we're doing is we're expecting that this anchor tag is going to be inside of the document. And so this is what is either going to fail or pass. So if this anchor tag is not in the document, well, this assertion is going to fail, and thus this test will fail. If it is in the document, well, this assertion is going to pass, and thus it will pass. The test will pass. So over here, we have an assertion. And what's nice is we can have multiple assertions within one test block. So this right here is known as a test block. This over here is another test block. And we can have multiple assertions within a test block. And if just one of them fails, the whole test fails. So just to quickly take a look at this, let's go ahead and open up our terminal. And let's run these tests again. So over here you can see now we have 2 passing tests. You might be wondering, why do we have 2 passing tests? Well, we have now one test here, and then we have another test here. And even though we're doing absolutely nothing in here, it is still passing. Well, why is that? The only way we can get a test to fail is if an error is thrown. And so, if an assertion is false or fails, then an error is thrown. But right now, because we're not doing anything, everything seems fine, and so the test passes. So let's actually just get rid of this test real quick. I'm going to get rid of it. And you can see now we have one test pass. And now what I want to do is I want to comment this out right over here. So let's comment out, let me zoom out a little bit. So I'm going to comment out this anchor tag. So let's say we commented out this anchor tag, and now notice that this test should fail. There we go. And why is that? Well, if we were to scroll up, all the way up here, it says that, hey, we're unable to find an element with the text learn React, and then over here it says this may be whatever. And what's really nice is that it also gives us an HTML tree of our component. So we can actually kind of dig around and we can look and we can see, well, yeah, it's right. There is no learn React anchor tag. So we can just go ahead and uncomment this out. And if you were to uncomment it out, it should pass.